Welcome to Marc My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Marc My Words. If you're looking to get out from behind the desk and maybe into the kitchen and pursue your career as a foodiepreneur or a chefpreneur, or you just want to be a chef or run a food truck, I know I've had some foodiepreneurs on this show in the past. Today, I have Kirsten Pedersen, who hails from Alaska and has a very interesting story about how she became a chefpreneur and foodiepreneur. And she is not only an executive chef and president of Alaskan Events and Catering, she is also the founder of the Culinary Illuminary, where you can go if you want to actually get out from behind the desk or wherever it is that you're currently working, and you want to get into the kitchen and work professionally. Kirsten Pedersen, welcome to Marc My Words. How you doing today?
Hey, Mark, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you and delighted that the snow or a hurricane did not stop us from making this happen today. We're both, at least for the time being, dodging Mother Nature, and technology's in our favor. Everything is lined up, and we are here to do this episode. I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, we had to postpone this because of recent events of the snow for me and the hurricane for you. But I'm glad it sorted itself out now. So, yeah, we just have to keep forging through, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I know that your story, kind of the overall tone of it, has a lot to do with that mindset. And I can't wait to really hear the whole story. I know a little bit about it. Uh, First thing though, as I usually do on this show, I see that you came to the mainland of the US at some point to study at Boise State University. And first of all, kind of a two-part question, but what did you study there? Was it what your passion is? And B, what was it like going from Alaska to the mainland and living here and studying here?
Well, I have to say, that was a while ago. And back then, my direction was actually medicine. I had planned to be in pediatrics, and I was actually going to target oncology. So I moved from Alaska down to Idaho and had transferred everything. The plan was to just finish up pre-med and then head on over to Harborview in Seattle and then go to medical school there. And they still have the program. It's called affectionately, it's WWAMI, and it's Washington, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. And it's an agreement between those states and Washington so that the students can get in-state tuition because those states don't have medical schools. Now, things have changed a little bit over the years, and we've got, more diverse programs and things like that. But uh, so I was there. I had just finished just like I said, I was just wrapping up pre-med, and I was on my way home one afternoon. I had been at the hospital, and I literally was hit in a car accident and kind of pulled the entire life rug out from underneath me. And I ended up having to go through about 3 years of rehabilitation. And it was everything from speech pathology to cognizance and retraining of the brain. Um, uh, I had uh, from the vehicle, I was actually induced into a TMJ situation that because of the misalignment from the accident, my head was thrown through the rear window of the truck. So yeah, I had to go through all of these, um, gosh, all of this rehab and whatnot. So by the time I was finished, and I was kind of floundering because I couldn't remember things. So that was part of the problem. When you think you go to sit for an exam and you know A and you know C or D, or you think the answer should be F, right? But you can't remember how to get from A to F. So that was the dilemma, was that I couldn't remember things. And so it was looking very bleak for me to go to medical school at the time. And of course, our advancements now, we know so much more about brain injuries now than we did, back then. So what I did was I bought some strawberries at the local fruit stand. You know that you can do that in Boise, Idaho, because they have lovely, four seasons. We don't really have that in Alaska. So, but I brought strawberries home one afternoon and I made jam. And I said, well, gosh, this is quite fun. Why don't I think about going to culinary school instead? So that's what transpired, and that's what started the next little path in the journey, the next fork in the road, so to speak. So from there, I left Idaho and I went to New England Culinary Institute in Vermont.
Wow, that it's amazing the places that life leads us to sometimes. You think you're going somewhere for one thing and you're so focused on it, blink of an eye, your life completely changes. And then such a little thing like you experienced wound up turning into a career, not just a career, but your own business. I mean, going through that traumatic of an experience, could you imagine, having your own business?
So, I never when I got through culinary school, the one thing I knew at the time, and as I left school and I went to, I came back to Alaska. A couple of reasons. My mom and dad were still here at the time. I brought the horse. I took a horse with me a horse and a dog. I took them to culinary school with me, and I thought, well, I'll take them back, and mom and dad can watch the horse and the dog while I go off on a year-long journey around the world. I had plans to go to Australia and Europe, and I had certain particular places that I wanted to go and study and I came back and I worked at a restaurant in Anchorage for a little while, and it was a very, very high-end restaurant, very top-notch. James Beard, we went to James Beard actually, but I knew that working at the restaurant, I didn't love it. And that kind of threw me for another loop because I thought to myself, here you were going to go be a physician, and now you're working at a restaurant and you don't love it, and you've just spent all this money on culinary school. So now what? Um, so I I kind of took a step back and I was doing a little personal chef work on the side. And thank goodness, because that's what allowed me to transfer from being a personal chef, because they started to say, well, could we have parties? And about the same time, I was still working at the restaurant, but I started working over in the catering side. They had a contract with the Anchorage Museum, and I got a taste of that. And I said, this is where I need to be and go forward with the next endeavor. So thank goodness for that. And that's what launched the catering company. And so I end up leaving the personal chef work, and we've just done catering ever since, and it's been fantastic.
So, what was it about working at the restaurant that you think you didn't like? Was it just too much of a grind? Was it too corporate? What was it?
You know, once I got the catering open, I had so many people come to me and say, you really should open a restaurant. We love your food. We want this, we want that. And I thought about it, but the thing is, when you know, the holiday season is right around the corner for us now. So we've got all these people coming to us booking their events coming up. And, there might be 80 on Saturday night, there might be 300 the following Friday night. And what happens is you go into the kitchen and you really prep and work really hard, and the crew comes together, and you might spend Monday, going over all the different things that we're going to prep and what we're doing, the menu and all those things. And then by Tuesday, Wednesday, we always start with the end of the menu. We start with dessert first and then work our way back. And so by the time, Friday comes around, or if it's Thursday for Friday night, then you're working on the proteins and things like that. And what can happen is so we'll be really busy over the holiday season or even in summertime, wedding season. But maybe you work, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday weddings, and then maybe you take the entire next week off. And having that flexibility and the time to just dictate and set your own schedule is brilliant. It really is brilliant. And if you have a restaurant, unless you've got somebody, unless you've got a chef who can literally run that to a T, and a general manager who's, working really well under you, you have to be there. And I'm not saying I mean, obviously in the catering, you have to be there as well, but it's a different concept because you can work really hard and then take the time off. And honestly, um, I would rather serve 300 people at once than do, 50 a night, 75 a next night, 100 the next night, 40 the next night, that kind of a thing. If you're doing 300 over the course of the week versus 300 on a Friday night, I think it's much better, and it allows you to scale faster. So I think that the catering is really the way to go, for sure.
And it sounds like you have more balance in your life. You're working really hard for a few days. You can go off, recharge, do what you want. You're making a good enough living, I'm sure. And sounds like a very positive cycle to me.
It really is. It really is. I love it. I'm so glad it's worked out this way because it's just been absolutely, I think it's just been fantastic. So, and we had a food truck for a while, and I loved that too. But I mean, and obviously the food doesn't care because the food doesn't matter if it's coming out of the truck. Although if you're doing some off premise and you're at a venue, depending on what they have for, um, you know, amenities, if it's a full kitchen or not, allows you to do different menus. So I love it. It's just, it is fantastic. So yeah, yeah, I just love it. It's brilliant.
So did you start out as like a solopreneur? Did you have a little bit of a staff? What was it like just to build up your business back then compared to maybe how it might be now?
Well, I have to say, it was easier prior to the pandemic. It seems like now, we've all got this issue where you can't seem to find people to work. Kind of a crazy thing. I don't know where they've all gone, but or people have shifted from that and said, well, I stayed home for 2 years, so yeah, maybe I'll just keep staying home. So it was definitely easier to staff, but it just not only when I built the catering company out, business wise, but I was literally and figuratively building. I'm coming to you from the hospitality building now, and I'm in the office, and behind me, you've got the mushroom poster here, but it's mainly to keep the glare because that looks down onto the kitchen. And so I literally, as I was growing the business, I threw all that money back into building this business, the building up. And it, that was a bit of a trial too, because when you build something this big, it's 6,000 square foot. And so there's the kitchen, there's the garage. I knew once I got the building at least this main portion done, I knew I was already out of room. And the other thing that I wanted to do was to go up. So there's two short-term vacation rentals above me now too. And so it just takes some time, and you've got to be willing to see it through, because it's very easy. And some days you have to just throw your hands up and walk away and go, okay, well, we'll come back to it tomorrow, or we'll come back to it next week, or we'll come back to it next month, because it's a trial. It definitely is a trial. And here in Alaska, we have a few more challenges that you don't have down, in the lower 48, as we affectionately call you. The everything has to be shipped in. So, and that's everything from lumber to, produce and proteins. Now obviously we have a great seafood market up here. It really is fantastic. But we don't have very many beef ranches. There's no pork ranches or anything like that. So again, all of that, there's even poultry farms. Our season's too short. And even our vegetables were limited to cold weather, cold root vegetables, mainly. So, I mean, it's great if you love lettuce and carrots and onions, but if you're growing tomatoes, you need to have a greenhouse or a hothouse, because it's just too chilly. So, it's a little bit of a challenge, to go through all of that. There's definitely easier places to work, for sure. So, and like down there, if you're there and you say, oh gosh, well, we don't have what we need from here. Chances are you can pop around to one or two other states, even if you really had to go to that length. We can't do that here. It's 3,000-mile drive from Anchorage to Seattle. So, it's just not right around the corner. But, yeah, if we can do it here, then obviously you and anyone else who wants to go down that path can do it anywhere. So it works out great.
And I think you brought up a real great point that I think anybody who has any business or is aspiring to have a business, whatever the case is, you gotta see it through. You can't give up. Because as I'm sitting here and listening to you tell your story about, you gotta see it through because of the circumstances, I had a second where I was like, huh, that's different from what I'm doing with the show. Because if things come up, it's pretty easy for me to just say, okay, I can put this on hold. But really, the bottom line is, I think unless you're really lucky somehow, you really gotta see your business through. You gotta stick with it and keep grinding it out, because you're not gonna become as successful as you want to be by kicking back and thinking it's all going to happen, whether you're aspiring chef in Alaska or a podcast host in Florida. It doesn't matter. If you want to accomplish something, you gotta put the work in.
It absolutely, Mark, and it's hard not to get discouraged. It's hard not to. Sometimes you're really throwing some curveballs, and you have to think creatively. I mean, we have the challenges up here that not only do we face those particular, just importing everything, but then we'll have these destination weddings, and they want to get married up on glaciers or in the mountains, and we're actually dragging water and generators and all kinds of things with us just to go do the event. So, I mean, we've obviously managed it over the years, but well, and we've excelled. I shouldn't say we've managed it. I mean, we have managed, but we've excelled at it, and it's fantastic. But for the most part, you don't have those challenges, down in the lower 48. So if you can overcome those things and figure out, and this is where, this is one of the things that people don't realize when they go to school, like medicine. it's a matter of trying to figure out the problem. I mean, that's what you're really learning to do is figure out the problem and figure out the solution. So, you know, can you run out and do it on your own? Sure. But would it be easier with a coach or a mentor? Why reinvent the wheel? Because if you have someone you can lean on, because I'm telling the situations that come up, like, you have bride and grooms that want to challenge contracts, or they want to change the menu at the last minute, or they decide they want to do, there's a million different things that come up. And so knowing how to handle those situations, after 25 years, I mean, we know how to handle the situations for sure. But if someone wants to go do that themselves, or get into, the food business and do catering or have events, or if they even want the restaurant, some people want a restaurant or a cafe or bistro. I'm not going to say no, just know what challenges you're up against, and just make sure that you can get through them, because it's all very, and you also have to have a little bit of a, I would say, a little type A personality, with a little bit of a little bit of a, duck feathers on your back. Because, sometimes you have to let things roll off you and go, okay, well, next time we might do it like this, or, you know, next time we'll address the challenge, this way if it comes up again. So yeah, and there's things that come up you can't anticipate. So yeah, being able to figure it out in the moment can sometimes be interesting, for sure.
Well, letting things roll off of you as you're learning and figuring all this out. I mean, there's usually, even if you have somebody who's teaching you and instructing you and giving you their wisdom, there's still no real blueprint. And sometimes things happen that, maybe you're not ready for, happen on the fly. You gotta make a decision. And you're going to get put in situations where you're gonna have to learn. I know personally, if I make like something that I consider to be a real bad mistake on the show or whatever the case is, I'm really like gutted and I take it very, very hard. But you have to wake up the next day and be ready to dust yourself off and keep going. And it may not even be the next day. Sometimes it's just in the moment and you gotta be able to dust yourself off and keep going and just learn from the mistake or whatever it is that you're going through. It's being an entrepreneur is it's a lonely, or it can be a lonely, isolated job, but it's also very rewarding, and you also have to be very strong, which you clearly are with all of the obstacles that you have just to be a success and make your business work.
Very true, Mark. And actually, at the end of the day, I mean, it's one thing to have a really successful event, or a really successful catering event, or, for you, a very successful interview, and on um, a podcast. But I think I think we learn more from our mistakes or the challenges, because you come away from that and you think, wow, I never saw that coming. Okay, but if it does come up again, well, we'll know, ABC, XYZ. We do learn from our challenges, um, and the things that come up. I mean, really, that's what helps us grow and improve. Because if everything's successful and it's just, the same weekend to weekend, or just, we're not learning from that. So the challenges and what we, of course, perceive might be a failure or a mistake, maybe isn't a failure or mistake in anyone else's eyes. So that's also a consideration as well. That what we, of course, as entrepreneurs, considers, maybe something critical, maybe just isn't to the client, as well. It depends on what it is, clearly.
And that's very important as well, because what we do see as a failure or a misstep, it might not be taken that way at all. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace as we do make mistakes or at least things that we perceive as a mistake. And I guess I'm just speaking off of personal experience because there was actually an episode where I was super prepared for, but I said the name of the person I was talking to. I said their company incorrectly. It was like half right, half wrong. And they're like, oh, it was blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my gosh, like totally in the moment. I was like just absolutely kicking myself. But it was a really amazing guess. So it's like, okay, I made a mistake, totally recognized it, apologized. This is still a really great episode, a great show. Let's keep it going and let's just, all the other information's there, just keep going. And
Right.
yeah, that's kind of what you have to do sometimes. I mean, I guess for me, there are or could be do overs, but I guess because of the way I do all this, there really aren't a lot of do overs. So you just gotta kind of wear your mistakes sometimes and just say, hey, I'm really not perfect. I'm good. I'm very good. I'm going to deliver, but I'm human too.
And that's it. We're all just human. So, there's only so many things within our power that we can handle. And some of it's out of our hands at times. So, I just even was seeing here a second ago that my internet was showing it was unstable. So I'm like, oh, I might have to pause the video so we can keep chatting for the duration here. But that's what happens. The satellite today with the weather is going to be challenging. So hopefully it continues.
I've had episodes already where I lost somebody in the middle, or maybe something happened on my end in the middle. And all you do is just say, all right, I'm back. You're back. Are you ready? And you hit record and you edit and you just keep on going. Like, you know, shit happens. I mean,
Sure does.
and one thing, so I'll admit to maybe something that I'm doing here. I may have seemed slightly distracted. It's only because you kept talking about the lower 48 and we're talking about you being up there, I'm down here. I wanted to see how long it would take for one of us to reach each other. And apparently, according to MapQuest, if we took Route 1 or just the number one route, not exactly Route 1 per se, it would be 71 hours and 8 minutes, 4,700 miles. And then I guess the second route would be 73 hours. And the third route is back to 71 hours. So I don't really know what that has to do with anything, but I had to know. I'm sitting here, I'm like, she keeps talking about the lower 48. I have to find this out. So it would take quite a long time.
Well, and so that's what in Alaska, because we're the 49th state, and because Hawaii, of course, is off on its own, being the 50th, that's what we call going to the lower 48. Or if we go outside, that's when we leave Alaska, we're going outside or going to the lower 48 because you're the 48 continuous states. But I will tell you, I think you would have to be chipping along at a pretty good rate to make it in 73 hours because um, generally speaking, the road from Anchorage, and you have to go all the way up to the Yukon and then back down again through Canada. That is, like I said, about 3,000 miles. It can easily take people. I know some of the truckers will really, they'll drive right through and they'll just kind of keep on going. But if you're hauling and you've got big loads or pets or animals and the road is not, I mean, it's a single lane highway. It's not that great. I mean, it's all paved now, but it can easily take people a week, 4 or 5 days even just to drive from Seattle to Anchorage. So I can't imagine what it would take going from Florida even up to Seattle. But I think yeah, that's an optimum premium drive for 70, 71, 73 hours. Oh my goodness.
If
Yeah,
if
yeah.
if I had the time, that is the kind of drive and challenge I think I'd be up for just to see the world. But yeah, I can't imagine the challenges even after you've laid them all out. And I mean, it's long enough just to go to Seattle or Vancouver, let alone, other places. So I had to find out. I had to know because it just popped into my head. I'm like, wait a minute here. I'm all the way down here. She's all the way up there. How long would that be? So now that I satisfied my curiosity on that, so something else I am curious about. So when did you get to the point where you said, you're having a lot of success, you're doing well, and then you decided that you wanted to teach others how to take control and explore their foodiepreneur, chefpreneur passion? What made you think about teaching others?
Well, I think, I mean, the pandemic, I think, challenged all of us in some form or fashion. And some people shifted over to ghost kitchens. So they were creating meals and putting, meals out for people because of our location and just we're fairly remote. And that scenario just didn't work for us. So I think during that time, that's when I realized it's like, with all everybody else was on Zoom calls, of course, but we weren't. And oh, but my mind was brewing back then. It's like, well, wait a minute, like anyone else, I'm sure, in your industry, you may have your cohorts or your forums that you get together and you talk about it, whether it's via social or some other way. And, you discuss certain things, how to do things better, how to approach, clients or whatever it is. And that's the time that it dawned on me that, I think there's this idealism out there that you have to go grow up and go to school and go to college and then maybe get that master's degree, and you have to go through all of these steps before you can go launch whatever it is that you want to do. And I think that's obviously been around for eons now, but with our technology and the internet and all of these other things, there's ways. When I look back, now would I have done it? I don't know, because at the time the only option was to go to culinary school and then, learn what I could from that program. But when you come, it's like anything else. I think you come out of school and do you really know what it is that, how is that going to help you? Yeah, you can go into the kitchen and go, okay, well, yeah, I know how to cut an onion like, like this. Okay, great. But when it comes to, working with a client or working with say a bride and groom in their upcoming wedding, culinary school doesn't teach you that, and neither does MBA school. So that's when we started putting things together and saying, look, if somebody wants to go and learn this, they can do all that if they want, but how much longer will that prolong them? How many more years are they going to spend in school versus actually getting out, going and getting that food truck and being on the road next summer or 6 months or however long it takes? And again, will they know all the information that they need to know? They don't teach you things about contracts or legal or insurance and all of those other, things that come up when you launch a food business. And so it's like, why should people kind of go through the motions and stop reinventing the wheel? And let's help people. Because here's the other thing too. If they take out all that money and student loans, then what's left over for them for their startup? Nothing. They're going to have to get even more in debt. And so I think circumventing that a little bit, and with the technology that we have today, it makes it so much easier. So if people, have that recipe, or they've got that aptitude, they grew up in the kitchen with their parents and they learned, and they just know that this is, or maybe they grew up in a kitchen, maybe they grew up going to the restaurant or the cafe. Why not take that knowledge and, like, let's not put that into more years of study and training that may or may not fit anyway. Let's get them out on the road. Let's get them that food truck. I mean, let's go. I mean, I don't know. And people are young, and we've all done this, right? You think, oh, I'll do this next year, or in 5 years I want to do this, and then you get to a stage and you say, you know what? No, let's let's do it now. Where time is marching on, and it's yeah, you're older than you think.
That there is a lot of truth to that because sometimes when I'm not staring at myself while I'm doing a podcast, in my mind, I'm still, in my early 30s, I feel pretty good. But the truth is, I'm inching closer and closer to 50. And I guess that is what inspired me to really start doing things like creating content. I started out in my field. I'm one of the weird ones who have stayed in my field since college, and I love what I do. But there came a point where I left my company of 10 years. They offered me a buyout package, and I stayed in my field and was freelancing, but I found I wasn't as fulfilled. So that's when my journey to where I am now really started. And it's one of those things where I think I took a real good look at myself and I said, I'm inching closer to like the middle of my life if I'm not there already, actually. So if I want to do things like write a blog, start a podcast, whatever it is that I want to do, I better really start doing it now. So you do hit that point in your life, and there's really, I always like to say it happens in your 30s, but there's really no way to define it. You just know when you're there, and yeah, time is not always our friend. So if you want to do something, you're better off going for it now than putting it off.
Yeah, don't wait. Don't wait. Time is marching for sure.
So speaking of time marching on, and I don't know if this is a good segue or not, but it's a segue nonetheless. What exactly do you teach? I mean, I guess you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but what would a class with you look like virtually? Like, what are the steps to like graduating? What do you want them, other than some of those intangibles of, you know, business and some of the things you may not learn otherwise? What do you want your students to learn about cooking?
Well, so there's two elements. There's obviously the cooking side and the business side. And we have three different tiers, if you will. The first one, they spend about a month, 5 weeks with us, and they just, if they're brand new to the whole industry, but they know, they've just got this passion inside them, or maybe they've been taking things into work and saying, gosh, and everybody at work goes, oh, you should open a restaurant, right? Or you should get a food truck, right? We take that first step and we go through the process of, you know, building branding and helping them launch if that's what they'd like to do. And that short initial is just a kind of a stepping stone to help them decide, is this right for them? Is do they have what it takes? what are some of the particulars that they should know before they jump all in with moving into a foodpreneur business. And so we take that first, and it varies for some people. Sometimes it's a month and sometimes it's 6 weeks because different people may have a couple of different things going on. Everybody's at a different level. So that's the thing. We want to work with people who are, um, we've got some clients who, like there's some people on the East Coast right now, and actually one in particular I'm thinking of that she's still in public education during the day, but then she is going to the kitchen. It's a rented kitchen, and she's putting on parties at the weekend. But now she doesn't know anything about contracts, or she doesn't have, she doesn't have she's a sort of a little website, but she's not really, And then she picked a name which it meant everything to her name, I mean, and so this would be like, you know, you she's actually from another country, and so she picked a name that was very synonymous with her culture, and it's great that it means so much to her, but to the general person here, it's like, well, would they think they don't know that word to start with, so they're not going to go looking for you as, like West African catering because they don't know they don't know to go look for you like that. So instead of, some abstract word that's West African, choose a name that, people will go, oh, okay, this is Susie's Catering over in New York. Okay, it's catering, it's in New York, and Susie's doing it. That you don't have to guess, you know what I mean? So there's we help people kind of get some of these, little idiosyncrasies, defined and figured out. From there, yes, it's funny, right? I mean, like, it means something to them, but not to the rest of the world. And when you're in this day and age, you have to be very clear about what it is you're doing, for sure. So from there, we take it to a step further. And if some of them already have that component, some of those components figured out, then we jump into some really nitty-gritty things like working with clients and how to find some of those particular clients, how to work with, maybe it's a local hospital or some of the medical facilities, doing catered luncheons once a week, or setting up long-term contracts with clients. So the legal, the insurances, and if they've got a menu defined, then we just, if they need equipment, we figure out, we help them figure out what exactly they need for, is it, are they doing it on a food truck? Do they have access to a kitchen? All of those different, that one goes into a few months worth of time. So that one's really, really deep and intense. And from there, we even have people who say to us, look, we've got an opportunity to go set up a kitchen on a golf course or a country club. But or I've been given a plot of land, or I can rent a plot of land, but I need a kitchen now. We've actually worked with a manufacturer where the kitchen can actually be built out and literally delivered to their location, and they will literally put the connexes together. They literally open it up. They seal it together. It's put, they can do anything they want, aesthetics on the outside, but it literally is a turnkey kitchen, and they can go in, get started, and it's, they put it wherever they need to go, and and then they're off and running. So that's another element too that we can help some people with if that's what they would like to do. Same thing with a food truck or what it is, or maybe it's an old restaurant that's closed down or a cafe, and they want to move into that, and they need help with, okay, contracts and leases and legalities of taking something over like that, equipment, lots of things. So yeah, it's three different levels. And again, everyone's at a different stage. So, but better to be there than to be saying, well, I think I'll start culinary school in January. And so I think I'll get launched in, 2030, right?
Right. And I think everything that you're doing is really amazing, especially doing it virtually. And I usually ask this question pretty much at the end, and we can revisit it in a few minutes here because I know we're starting to get a little short on time. But I am curious to know, how do people find you? How do they find your instruction? You have a beautiful website.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, they can look at the catering website, of course, at cateralaska.com. But as the Culinary Illuminary, we're shedding light on how they can launch their own endeavor. So if they go to the Culinary Illuminary, it's culinaryilluminary.com. And so they can go right there, they can watch a quick video, they can throw in their information, and from there we'll send them emails and we'll go to the next step. We make it pretty easy. So yeah, that's where they need to go for sure.
And how big of a role does social media play as far as getting this out there?
Well, so LinkedIn and the usual Facebook and we're not really on Twitter so much, but Instagram. Those are probably our main components. Those three. We've got a few things up on TikTok. Just a couple little things here, but on these podcasts, we really talk about going to the website, theculinaryilluminary.com, and watching the video there, and from there going forward. But yeah, I mean, social media, I mean, everybody's on it these days. YouTube's another one. So they can, if we've got a little something popped up there if they're wanting more information. But yeah, these days, I mean, the yellow the yellow pages are over. I mean, I guess you could do billboards, but then you're just too local to that, that specific location. So yeah, I don't know where we would be without the social media these days. That's definitely, and it's for everyone, whether it's your podcast or our culinary program.
Yeah, it's amazing how much technology has changed everybody's life. And I think we really learned that during the pandemic. I know that really changed my life. And I wasn't, so the podcast wasn't really created because of the pandemic. It was something I was already thinking about doing. And it came kind of the same way as, oh, you should be a chef or you should start your own this or that. People every once in a while were saying, oh, you should start a podcast, you should create your own content. And of course, it's odd. I have not really had anybody tell me that ever since. It was just during that one particular era, I was going to a lot of events called LinkedIn Local when I lived in the DC area, and had quite a few people tell me, oh, you should, have you ever thought about a podcast, or have you ever thought about creating your own content? And I swear I have not had one person ask me that since. It's not like my podcast is known all over, everybody knows it. So I would expect that maybe somebody would ask me that, but nobody has. So it's weird how the world works sometimes. It works in mysterious ways.
Right, right. But you know what? I think when people are meant to find you, they stumble on you, or they're scrolling somewhere and they see something and go, "Oh, let me check this out." And it's amazing how people find you when the timing is right. I think the universe works in very interesting ways in that realm.
Well, it worked out pretty well for us today, despite all the miles between us, the 4 billion, whatever miles we are here. Everybody's technology held up. No major storms held us back. Kirsten Pedersen, I thank you so much for being on Mark My Words. I had a blast talking to you today.
Mark, I am delighted. Again, thank you for having me. And if you make it up to Alaska, you better pop in and say hello for sure. So, if you're in this, if you're heading this way, or even if you're thinking about planning a trip, you reach out and ask me, and I'll steer you in the right directions of the things to how to do it and what to do and what to see for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, Alaska is on my list of places to go. It looks like a beautiful state. So I definitely want to go up there sometime, and I will absolutely look you up, and hopefully a nice meal is in the cars there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. That goes without saying.
Well, I have a cat who is scratching at the door. I have them closed out for this hour here, so I guess I better wrap this up and go let him in the office. So thanks again for being here, Kirsten Pedersen. She is executive chef of Alaskan Events and Catering, and also the founder of Culinary Illuminary. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Enjoy the heat of Florida, and we'll chat with you on the flip side, Mark.
And you enjoy the snow as much as one can enjoy the snow.
Okay, will do. Chat with you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.